Welcome back. As the Iran war enters its fourth day, another conflict rages on. How does the situation in the Middle East impact the Russia-Ukraine war?
Joining us in studio now is Shvetsova and Steven Moore from the Ukraine Freedom Project. Welcome.
Great to be with you.
So good to have you both back.
In the living room this time.
Indeed. And much has changed since last time we spoke. Of course, the big one being recently the attack on Iran. And we're going to look specifically here about how the Russia-Ukraine war impacts. They both impact each other. But Russia and Iran have been helping each other militarily. Let's start with how Iran has been assisting Russia.
Well, and listen, I want to point out that we're in a global war right now, and there's shooting wars in the Middle East and Europe. But China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, and all the Islamic extremist movements are working together. And so, how has Iran been helping Russia? 58,000 drones, the Shahed drones that Putin sends into Ukraine to kill civilians. Those are Iranian drones.
Yeah.
And so, hey, listen, I don't like to celebrate anyone's death, but there was a certain satisfaction to seeing the guys that had killed so many Ukrainian civilians get their just rewards.
Do you see this attack on Iran as having a major impact on the Russia-Ukraine war?
Yeah, totally. In part because there's a shift from Iran being actively plotting the demise of the United States and Ukraine. If you can get them to not doing that, that's a big win because there's a technological sharing there between Russia. Russia, Iran, and China and Ukraine are the best in the world at drone warfare, and we're not. So taking Iran out of the game and maybe getting some of their technology, they do it cheap, they do it effective. Those Shahed drones are 50,000 apiece, and they're really good at killing people.
And you mentioned how Iran was supplying that drone capability to Russia, which was attacking Ukraine. What about the Russians? Are they assisting Iran, either previous to the beginning of this operation or even to this day?
Well, I will tell you this. The reason that we're doing this in Iran is because of Russia. Russia built the first nuclear power plant in Iran, and they've been supplying the whole nuclear program since the 90s. And who helps them? Hungary. Viktor Orban in 2016 and 2017 trained Iranian nuclear technologists and sent $100 million to Iran to collaborate on a nuclear project. And just as recently September, Hungary said, and this is just a couple of months after the last attack on Iran, Hungary pops up and says, I think it's time to reinstate the Obama-era Iran nuclear deal. So, Orban pretends to be Trump's friend, but you look at what he's doing, and, people from the Chinese regime are patrolling the streets of Budapest, security officers. So he's got this deal with China as well. So this is the global nature of the war we're in.
Yeah. All three regimes, really, you mentioned China, Russia, and Iran, have a kind of stated ambition to reorder the global order and surpass the U.S. In that sense, Anna, coming recently from Ukraine, I believe, do you have a sense that the people in Ukraine are responding positively, or in what way, to the recent strikes on Iran?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I'm just back from Ukraine, and President Zelensky was one of the first world leaders who expressed full support to Trump's actions in Iran. We stand with Iranian people, but we don't stand with Iranian regime. Russia bought 57,000 Iranian Shahed drones, which were terrorizing Ukrainian people, which were destroying Ukrainian infrastructure for the past 4 years. Only in February, they sent 5,000 Shahed drones from Iran. So we are happy to have this regime, we are happy that this is happening. It's to our benefit. Also, Russia is essentially a gas station with an army. If this war will help to drop the oil prices down, you cut the funding to Russia, and Russia doesn't have funds to finance this war anymore.
You talk about the economics, Anna, of Russia being able to sustain this wartime economy. The last time you were here, you spoke specifically about things that I hadn't realized about the particular targeting of the Christian community and religious leaders in Ukraine. And I want to get an update on what's happening in the ground in Ukraine right now.
In the Putin's last year, end of year speech, Putin said that Russia has Eastern Orthodoxy, this is how he calls Russian Orthodoxy, has more in common with Islam than with Catholicism or other Western religions. And this is exactly what is happening. His regime is closer to Islamic extremists groups rather than to Western values. Currently, we made a movie called A Faith Under Siege. It's about Russia's persecution of Ukrainian Christians on the ground. We recently showed the movie on the Capitol Hill to draw attention to the issue again, because as of now, there are more than 80 pastors and priests killed on the occupied Ukraine. More than almost 800 churches have been destroyed. And we would like this question to be addressed during the peace negotiations. We want the religious freedom to be, religious freedom question to be included to the peace negotiations.
Right. And there has been a lot of controversy even within Russia about the war that Putin has waged. And as you mentioned, Steven, this aspect of Orban is quite surprising. And I assume there's many people, even within Hungary, that would be opposed to such an alliance. And what's your sense of the people of faith opposing war within that region, and how strong of a sentiment that is, and what people can even do?
Yeah, so the Orban thing is surprising because he's running for re-election. He's standing next to Trump to gain popularity, but again, Viktor Orban has supported financially Iran's nuclear program to the tune of $100 million, and so in this global war we're in, there's shifting alliances, and we got to keep an eye on those who pretend to be our friends, and so I don't think anyone wants a war, but I'll tell you a brief anecdote. One of my friends in Ukraine was a software engineer, and he's a strong believer. And then when the war started, he went to go be a chaplain. And he was a chaplain for a year or so. And then he was just so disgusted with what the Russians were doing, he decided the best use of his time was to be a drone pilot. And so now he is taking kinetic action against the Russians, and he's doing very well because he's now commanding several drone teams. And so there's a point at which you can, you've just got to defend your family, your freedom, your faith, and Russia shut down every church in occupied Ukraine. Not one church is left that doesn't report to Vladimir Putin. And going back to Anna's point about Islam and Orthodox Christian, Patriarch Kirill, who's the patriarch of the Russian Orthodox Church, has said, if you die fighting in Ukraine, all your sins will be washed away. Does that sound familiar? Mm-hmm. Does that sound like something that the Hamas would say or the Iranians would say? So this is a global war. There's a spiritual aspect to it with this weaponization of religion, and it's frankly we have been too soft on. I mean, as you guys know, Xi Jinping responds to strength, and Vladimir Putin responds to strength. Yeah. And so good to see we're doing it.
Well, thank you both so much for your time and your insights today. That's all we have time for, unfortunately. Anna Shvetsova and Steven Moore. Folks, if you want to hear more, you can check out the Ukraine Freedom Project, and there's plenty going on there.
UkraineFreedomProject.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much.